Incoming transmission.
All right, there we go. That's crazy enough. Hey, everybody, it's Ed, and my guest this week is Ellie. Hi, Ellie. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm very, very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. It's nice to meet you, as it were, on view screen here. Yeah, I think I'm trying my best at this point to get everybody from Trek culture one by one. Although technically the first from Who culture, so that that I'm gonna count that.
Don't tell
I
Sean that.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I think Who culture, I think you. When I think Trek culture, I think him. It's different things though. Although if I'm thinking, Janeway, I think you. It's kind of weird. If I think, curmudgeon, I think Tom. So but and eventually I'm gonna get around to him, but I'm curious on how that's gonna go. I've listened to enough of the podcast to know that, some things I like he doesn't like. So
He's a teddy bear. He's a
well,
teddy
I hope
bear.
so. I am curious. Now, you are relatively in the universe of Star Trek a newbie. And I mean,
hmm
you're relatively new and welcome to the family, as it were. But what, like, just out of curiosity, and you may have talked about this before, but like, what brought you in to Star Trek? Was it just the job, or was it previous to the job?
So I think for the most part, it was my job, but I wasn't completely unaware of what Star Trek was growing up. My mum is a big fan of The Next Generation. So I did grow up watching random episodes of The Next Generation, and when I did get this job, they were who I was familiar with. I knew who all the main characters of The Next Generation were. Apparently, according to her, I actually found it quite scary as a child. So I don't know that I watched it that much. I think the Klingons scared me. I think I
Hmm.
just, it was quite a scary thing for me as a kid. So yeah, I was aware of it. And my mum, I say she was a fan. She went to the odd Star Trek convention back in the day. And so, we did have figures lying around and all sorts of things like that. But it wasn't something that I'd watched everything of or was massively into at the time. But when I got my job with Who Culture was my predominant start. I started with Who Culture just on a freelance basis. But when I asked the company what culture if I could start doing more work, they said, well, you can, but we don't have enough work for you just on Who Culture. So you need to
Hmm.
spread across the other channels as well. And we'd like to put you on Trek Culture. And I know that Chris will make no secret of this. He has made no secret of it. He was very reluctant because I didn't have a lot of knowledge of Star Trek
Hmm.
at the time. And they said, look, if you're going to work on the Star Trek channel, you need to do your research. You need to watch Star Trek, basically. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So I did. I set myself the challenge. I said, right, I'll go back to the original series. And my intention was to build up and watch in release order.
Hmm.
That kind of backfired a little bit when things became more of a priority further down the line, such as Picard season 3 was on its way. So I kind of finished The Next Generation and then went straight to Picard so that I could be caught up on Picard in time for the new season,
Okay.
and things like that. So my intention was to do it in chronologically in release order, but I kind of had to jump about a little bit after that because things took priority. But luckily, I really enjoyed it. So, watching a lot of Star Trek wasn't too much of a chore. If I started watching it and I wasn't really getting into it, then it probably wouldn't have worked out. But I put a lot of effort into making sure that when I didn't know things, Sean was getting messages practically every day asking, how do I pronounce this? How do I say this word? What does this mean? Like, I didn't want to pretend to know what I was talking about. I wanted to learn.
Right.
Um, I mean, I studied as an actor, so part of me was like, look, just put all your skills to good use here. And as long as everyone believes you know what you're talking about, then it's fine. But obviously, I wanted to be able to talk about it without being like a deer in headlights if someone was to ask me a question and I had no idea what they were talking about, which still happens. But
Well,
yeah, so I just started watching.
well, there. I mean, obviously. So here's let me. My first question is: was the appearance of Seven of Nine and Picard your catalyst for jumping onto Voyager to learn more about Voyager, or did that happen prior to her appearance in Picard?
So actually, I wanted to watch Voyager. I
Okay.
hadn't got to that yet because I wanted to obviously do them in release order. So my plan was to do TNG, DS9, Voyager. I started DS9. I'll admit I struggled to get into it.
Hmm.
And at the time, I was watching them with my mum, and she struggled to get into it as well. So we were like, should we just jump straight to Voyager? But I had watched Picard season 3 first. Well, I'd watched all of Picard at that point. And so, yeah, Seven of Nine was a really interesting character who I knew was from Voyager, but at the time I hadn't got there. And I think if I can remember that far back, I think my starting to watch Voyager coincided with watching Picard. So
Okay.
I think I was kind of learning of Seven of Nine around the same time. But I definitely had watched Picard before I'd started Voyager because I was interested to know when Seven of Nine would turn up because I was familiar with her from Picard. So I did it a little bit backwards.
And that's the thing too. I understand DS9 being difficult to start with. Season 1 and 2, I tell people all the time, if you're going to start it, start with 3, or at least the last episode of 2 going in, because there are good episodes, but they're kind of, sometimes they're a little rough and they're dated, and I think later seasons are kind of universally, loved. So to a point. The Voyager though, and watching it in order, that would have been fun. I envy you on so many levels because like for me, I grew up with, I started with animated series and TOS in the early 80s, and that was what I learned. And then I experienced everything else as it came out. So, but to go back and be able to see it with fresh eyes, I envy you,
Mm.
you know.
I think that's the beauty as well. I think this is where Chris kind of became a little bit more accepting of me joining and saw the positives of it is that it allowed for the channel to have somebody who was experiencing it for the first time and to give that perspective on the channel. We have people who, like Sean, who, grew up watching it, is an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to Star Trek. But it's interesting to have a contrast of somebody who's learning all these things for the first time and to kind of have the audience living vicariously through me of experiencing it for the first time again. And the excitement of not only the audience, but also Sean and Tom and Chris of me discovering things that, were plot twists 30 years ago that they're like, oh, I've been waiting for you to get to that bit. So, that's kind of where Chris became more on board with it and has been very welcoming. And now, I'm part of the team, but he kind of then, yeah, grew to see that side of it and enjoyed having someone who could offer a new perspective, but also a modern perspective. I'm not clouded by nostalgia for Star
Yeah.
Trek like I am for Doctor Who. So I can talk about it with this kind of fresh modern perspective that people who grew up with it might not see.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, and in a way, I'm the reverse with Doctor Who. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been watching Doctor Who since 2008. I started about 3 years after, the revival had happened. I discovered it on a lark. Actually, it was when Netflix was still sending discs, and I decided
Yeah.
to try something, and I was like, "Oh, let's check out Doctor Who," and I started getting them, and I was just like, yeah, I was hooked from that point forward, to the point that I made a trip to Utah when they were filming out there.
Did you?
Yes, I was there.
Ah.
The Impossible Astronaut is probably my
Mm.
favorite episode for multiple reasons, and I love telling you this. One, I was there. I was in Utah while they were filming it. Two,
Wow.
my name is Edsel. My first name is Edsel. My middle name is Ford, and the doctor was sitting on an Edsel when they first appeared there, and I was like, "Ooh, it's an Edsel." And three, they're dealing with the moon landing and stuff. I
Mm.
live in a town called Wapakoneta, Ohio. It is the hometown of Neil Armstrong. Like,
Wow.
so I was like, this episode is just connected everything to my fiber. So I loved it, and I was seeing a girl in Utah at the time, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna come visit. It's like, I know something's happening. Let's go do something.
No
But
ulterior motive whatsoever.
yeah,
Absolutely not.
we couldn't get close, but we had binoculars. So, but no,
Love that.
it was a great one, and Matt Smith is probably, man, I gotta tell you, it's like he's my doctor. I love Tenet. I love Tenet with all my
Mm.
heart, both hearts. But but Matt Smith, I think I connected more with Matt Smith more than any of them, to the point that he got me to watch Game of Thrones stuff. So,
Uh-huh.
so,
Would you like to know a fun fact about Game of Thrones? Well, the Matt Smith Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. I don't know if
sure.
I've said this before. I auditioned for that series. Did I
Whoa.
get the part? No, I did not. But I still auditioned for the role of young Alicent Hightower.
Oh, I wish you would have gotten it. That would have been great. Although then you probably wouldn't be here right now.
Well,
You-
yeah.
Yeah, so, but well, that's also I see. I don't even think about it. Sometimes I get used to the idea of like I don't even think Hollywood anymore. I think Vancouver as being the place where
Mm.
people go to film things, and I forget things are filmed in other places, specifically like Lord of the Rings or even like Game of Thrones and stuff like that. There is a Lord of the Rings show, but okay, so let's talk a little bit of Doctor Who. Who is
hmm
your doctor? Since I brought up mine, who's yours?
I think David Tennant would be my doctor. So, I talk about nostalgia for Doctor Who. Obviously, I didn't grow up watching Doctor Who from 1963. Um, so when I talk about nostalgia for Doctor Who, I was the perfect age when it came back in 2005. So, it was my childhood. It's part of British culture. Everyone watched it when we were kids. You'd talk about it at school after you'd watched it at the weekend. But I think I don't know that I watched it straight away from right at the very beginning. Again, if I was scared of Star Trek, I was probably scared of Doctor Who as well. But the ones I really remember watching growing up are David Tennant's episodes. When I was just a little bit older, I could appreciate it more. And it's just filled with nostalgia for me. I have vivid memories of watching it on Christmas Day, on holiday one year, going to events like when we were kids. To me, that was the peak time of Doctor Who when you're still young enough to just think it's all real and be in awe of it. And then as I grew up, I appreciated it for different reasons. But yeah, I'd say David Tennant is definitely my doctor.
Like I said, I'm always a little torn. It's between he and Matt Smith, but then I think too, like I'm an Amy Pond fan. She's probably my favorite companion with Rory. I loved everything with Rory and Amy. But then River. But then River is everybody's. I mean, River's all over the place. And congratulations on your interview with Alex Kingston. I
Thank
loved
you.
it so much. Um,
Life made.
no, no. I mean, honestly, everyone lives vicariously through you with Kate Mulgrew and Alex Kingston. But here's the question: do you have a celebrity wish list? Who's left? Who's someone you've yet to interview and or meet that you would love to that hasn't happened alive? We'll go with alive.
Oh, I don't know. They were my top two, honestly. Alex Kingston, I don't know. Obviously, on the channel, I talk about her a lot and how much I love the character, but I don't know if people are aware of how long the obsession, let's go with obsession, has
Okay.
been a thing. I when I got this particular interview, obviously Kate Mulgrew was great, and I loved interviewing her, and I was so excited. And we all know I may or may not have like practically a shrine going on behind me here. But because I'm so new to Star Trek, I'm relatively new to Kate, and it's been quite a new kind of obsession development. Alex Kingston, I kid you not, I have been obsessed with since she first appeared in Doctor Who in, 2008. It's been a lifelong obsession. So, when that interview came through, I even the people who don't really engage in what my job is, who I've known since I was a child, who, I've known through growing up, through college, through university, everyone was so excited about this because they know how much I love this woman. So I'm trying to think of anyone else that would be on that list, but honestly, those two. Maybe I used to really, really love Amanda Tapping
Oh,
from
there.
Stargate SG-1, Sanctuary. I love Sanctuary. She would be an interesting one as well. And I also did go through a phase around the time that the first Mamma Mia film came out of being very obsessed with Meryl Streep.
Well,
Um,
Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep has held my heart since 1980. Oh no, 91. She did Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks, and it's my favorite film of all time. Like if someone said, like hand to God, what do you have to watch? Defending Your Life, and she's wonderful. She makes you fall in love with her in that film, and to the point my wife got it for me for Christmas last year in the Criterion Collection. So I think I own every version of that film that has ever been made. Um, and as for Alex Kingston, have you ever watched her on ER?
Absolutely. I have
Oh
watched
yeah.
every single thing that Alex Kingston has ever been in. I would not have watched ER if she wasn't in it, but and it's just recently been released on Netflix in the UK, so I
Oh
can
really?
watch it all again.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when she was on there. I think I fell in love with her hair. It was something about that was just. I know that's strange, but it was like. But then she was married to the character of Mark.
Hmm.
And I remember the just the
Such
struggle
a
of that character.
heartbreaking
Yes.
story.
It is. Even
I
now,
know.
it resonates. And so I think that's great. But as for Amanda Tapping, oh, Amanda Tapping was amazing. Stargate, I have her Funko Pop. Like I'm looking right at that pop right now. I have my Stargate section, and then but recently we started watching a show called it's I can't think of what it's called right now. I know it has but anyways, it takes place in Canada. It's a man that is terrible. The girl from Supernat or Smallville, Kristen Krug is in it. But anyways, and it's a murder mystery show. But Amanda Tapping is directing like almost every episode. Like every time we
Mm.
tune in, her name is at the end, like showing that she directed it. And so it's always nice to see that. Murder in a Small Town. It's called Murder in a Small Town. But Amanda Tapping is all over that show. And I haven't seen her show up on screen, but I'm
Yeah, I
hoping.
feel like she's stepped more into the director's role more recently.
Yeah.
I believe for Sanctuary, definitely she did direct some episodes, and I feel like that's maybe where her step changed. But she's directed lots of things. She directed an episode of Sabrina, which I really loved, the
Oh,
Netflix, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Um, that was good fun. That was one of
I
those
never got into
unfortunate
that
shows
one.
that got cancelled before they really had a chance to finish the story. So then it just kind of ended on this really weird, oh, okay, she's dead. Is that
Well,
really how
yeah,
you end the series?
yeah, she showed up on Riverdale, and I had never seen the show, and when she popped up, and I was like, okay, maybe I need to check it out, but I never did. I never go back. But now that I know how it ends, why not?
Sorry,
I'm
spoilers.
No, it's all right. It's a couple of years old. Amanda Tapping, I'm
Mhm.
hoping does pop up in the new Stargate in some way, which I know they're going to be
Mm.
filming in your area.
Are
So
they?
yeah,
Ooh.
apparently so. Stargate's going to be filming over there in the UK
Ooh.
sometime. I mean, but it'll be on Prime, so I'd like to see that happen. And
Mm.
I don't know if it's going to be based out of there or if they're going to just pretend it's the States. I don't know which, but still, Stargate, Amanda Tapping, that's great. That's a great choice.
Hmm.
Um, Now I talked about my favorite film. Let's go outside of that. Do you have a favorite film? What's a comfort film for you since you liked Mamma
Mm.
Mia? Is there any
I
others?
did. Yeah. I have three films in my top list. They're all very different films. One of them is Atonement,
Hmm.
which is an odd choice, and weirdly features an actress that I really don't like, Keira Knightley. But the film itself is really, really, really interesting. It's based off of a book. It's set in kind of three different time zones, and it's a very twisted story. But it's set during there's a scene, there's a one shot, single take that lasts like I don't know, maybe 5 minutes on Dunkirk Beach, and
Oh,
it's one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen. I studied it at college and I just fell in love with the film. It's quite a dark tale, but it's a very good film. I also love a film called Pride, which is a British film. It's based on real people, which focuses on the miners' strikes in the 80s. And it combines members of the LGBT community who raise money for the miners. And it's a kind of a tale of two very different groups of people coming together in their times of need to help each other. It's a
hmm.
really, really great story. It's got brilliant cast: Imelda Staunton, Bill Nighy.
Hmm.
Trying to think who else is in it. Andrew Andrew Scott. Andrew Scott. Brilliant, brilliant film. And the other one is maybe more of a childhood thing, but The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan.
Ah.
Comfort film, absolutely.
Well,
Love that
two
film.
of them I haven't seen, and one I haven't seen since I was young. But I will definitely have to check out Atonement and Pride. You say, right?
Pride, yeah. I'll
Uh,
send you the links. If
I
you haven't seen
appreciate
them, they're
that. Yeah.
great, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to check that out. The when you mentioned miners, you mean like going down into a mine and
Yes.
stuff. Yeah, see, that was something I was never aware. Like, of course, here in the States, we're not exactly taught, things that happen over in the UK and such. So I was never aware of how big mining was until honestly until Wrexham really got big with and
Mm.
Wales, for like they would talk about the mining, the community there, and I was like, and I started realizing that there were other towns that were like had football communities that would come together, and they were also minor towns, and I started
Mm.
realizing that how big that was, and it was not something I had ever realized. So
Mm, yeah,
it's interesting. I like learning. Um, but back to learning. Let's go back to you recently finished Deep Space Nine.
I did.
Now, first of all, DS9 is my favorite. I'm a Cisco guy. I have a Cisco section like you have a Janeway section, or Mulgrew, however you want to be. And it may come down to Avery. It might come down to Cisco. I'm not sure which. But did you have like any favorite moments in DS9 or underrated moments that you thought like? Well, no, let's do underrated. I'll save the underrated for Voyager, but like any moments in DS9 that really stuck with you or characters that really stuck with you. I haven't heard you talk about that yet.
No, and do you know what's really interesting is I've kind of the whole way through watching Deep Space Nine, I was waiting for my favorite character to emerge. Who is going to be my favorite character? And I kind of got to the end and realized I didn't really have one. I think that it's such a show that's kind of grounded in its ensemble that there wasn't necessarily anyone that really jumped out to me. But what I will say is that I thought that, based on the characters I love in other Star Trek shows or just shows in general, that I was going to fall in love with either Jadzia Dax or Kira. I feel, the female characters are the ones I tend to be drawn to. Um, and interestingly, I don't know if this is a kind of hot take or not, but I found that the character of Dax became far more interesting for me in season 7 when we were introduced to Ezri.
Okay.
And I thought that I wasn't going to like Ezri because I don't like change, and I thought I was going to be right at the end, and all of a sudden Jadzia is going to disappear, and we're going to be introduced to this new character, and I'm not going to like her. But actually, I had no issue with Jadzia as a character, but I just feel like the character suddenly became so much more interesting. There were so many more layers and depth to the character of Dax once we were introduced to this new character that kind of had to embody that role without really being trained for it, who then had really complicated relationships with all of our other main characters. I think the relationship between Esri and Worf personally was more interesting to me than Jadzia and Worf. Um, yeah, I just found Esri to be a really interesting character that surprised me because I didn't think I was going to like her very much.
No,
So
I
I'd say
get
maybe,
that.
yeah, that.
The episode where we find out her family are well minors, back to that again. But
Mm.
when we find out her family does that, I that's one of my favorite ones because it was character development, and I always appreciate character development episodes. Like even like going with this week's episode of Starfleet Academy, where people may say, "Oh no, it was slow," and it was slow, but it was character development, and that's what we needed. We didn't need the pew pew pews, and her episode really gave that character development, and we understood her more, and it wasn't just, oh, here's Jadzia 2.0. And I like that they did a lot in one season, even though 26 episodes helps, but they did a lot for that and made us appreciate her. So good call. I like that. um yeah. As for who would have been a favorite character, I don't think I would have chosen. I think I would have expected you to go with, Jadzia or Kira. And you threw me
Mm.
off. I like that.
Yeah, well, I don't know that Ezri is necessarily my favorite character. I don't know. I don't have a favorite. It's very difficult. I mean, I loved Garak. I thought he was very interesting, and obviously he's a fan favorite.
Yeah.
And I see why. Um, I I found in general the all the Cardassian characters I found really interesting. Um, Obviously, if you listen to the channel, you know Tom's opinions on Klingons, and I tend to sometimes share his view that sometimes for me Klingon stories are a little bit more boring for me. But I really liked the character of Martok as well, and he made me like the Klingons a little bit more. So he was a good addition as well, I think.
I was thinking about Tom the other day, especially this week's episode where of the podcast he was discussing his dislike of the Klingon episodes, and I get that. And Klingon, or maybe it was last week's episode, I messed up. I missed last week's episode of the podcast, and I listened to last week's this week, and then another one popped up the next day, and I went, wait a minute, it's like I missed something here, and it's like
Yeah, well, Tom
somehow
wasn't
I
there this week, so
okay,
it
yeah, I was like
yeah.
something happened. It was like I ended up listening to the wrong one a week later, but I thought of him. I was watching Enterprise's Judgment recently, and Judgment did a really good job, even though it was, for all intents and purposes, a replay of Star Trek Six for Enterprise. And I don't know if you've ever watched all of Enterprise yet, so if you haven't,
Not
spoiler.
yet.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I'll be careful with what I say. But the episode Judgment, it goes out of its way to really give Klingon character development early within a canonized way because everyone thinks of Klingons as warriors, and there's a really good line where an individual says, what do you think, we're all just warriors? We my mother was a scientist, my father was a teacher, and the one is a lawyer. And I always thought that was great because that's the same thing. People always think, even now, if you look at Jaden, the character of Jaden, which I love Jaden because his character is he wants to be a doctor, at least he's on that track, and he wants to be a healer, and in a way showing the non-aggression that Worf had introduced in Picard season 3. And to me, that's a different way of looking at a Klingon. It's not just, kill, 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 so
Mm.
I appreciate that, but this would be the conversation I would have with Tom. So, you know, but but no, I hope you enjoy Enterprise. Is that what's next on your Star Trek watch list?
Yeah, all I've got left now is Enterprise and the beginning of Lower Decks. I was gonna watch Lower Decks, but I was told it would be better to wait, and then all of the kind of jokes and things would make more sense once I'd watched everything, which makes a lot of sense.
That's
I
true.
had seen, I think it was season 4, the one that started with the Tuvix episode. I've seen that
Yeah,
season because obviously we spoke about it on the podcast and things, so I had to watch it to talk about it. But so I've seen one season of Lower Decks from the middle of it. But but also,
two
if I'm
weeks.
being totally honest, I'm not a huge fan of kind of like adult themed cartoons like Family Guy and those sorts of things. So I'm going into Lower Decks kind of got to just take it as it is. And I think I can enjoy it and appreciate it, but generally they're not my cup of tea. So we'll see how we go with that.
In a way, Lower Decks has kind of changed. I mean, we've all gotten used to, I guess, seeing Tawny Newsome and Jack Quaid in real life and other things that
Mm,
they're doing. That when I've gone back and watched it, I don't even see Beckett Mariner and Boimler. I hear them. I hear Jack
mm,
Quaid and I hear Tawny, and I kind of think of it as them because there's a lot of them in those characters,
mm.
and I think a lot of it came down to recording in isolation. They didn't have that to bounce off, but you really don't, you can't tell. And Mike McMahon is wonderful. Have you ever read his book that he did, where it was an extension? I have it right here. Hold on a second. He did a book. It's Next Generation Warped, and it was a proposed eighth season of Next Generation. Like what would have happened if he had written Next Generation. And there are so many elements that became Lower Decks in
Hmm.
this book. And but I mean it's fully realized, like script development and everything. It's well worth checking out. It's not hard to find. Um, and it's all Mike McMahon, like years before Lower Decks. He just wanted to do Star Trek. Um, but yeah, I hope you like that. I hope you enjoy Enterprise. Enterprise it's very decisive between fandom. I like it. The last episode, I know I don't even have to say spoiler alert. Everybody has, will tell you that that one's the hardest one to get through, but good luck. Um, but no, I hope you enjoy it. I'm currently rewatching Supernatural, if you've ever seen that. with my wife. She gave me the greatest gift ever. She's like, "Let's watch Supernatural," and she'd never seen it. And we got to an episode, and it's Bugs. It's in season one, and I said, "We're gonna skip this one." She's like, "Why?" And I said, "Do you remember the last episode of Enterprise?" She said, "Yeah." That's why. Same reason. It's like so I didn't have to say anymore. It's turned into a verb, as it were. Um, but no. So when we think Voyager, you
Hmm.
obviously Voyager, Ellie. The world thinks of you when they think Voyager now. I think you have become synonymous with Voyager. But what would you say is an underrated moment that people don't talk about? Is there anything that ever stuck out with you or an episode that you said, "Why didn't this get more love?"
One of my favorite episodes is a bit of a bottle episode. One of my favorite episodes of Star Trek is Tinker Tenor Doctor Spy. And I don't know, I think it's maybe a wild choice. I just think it's a fun episode. It's interesting, it's fun, it shows you the Doctor. I mean, I know there are questionable moments within it that some people, I see there are issues, but just in general, I just think it's a fun episode. I like seeing these different daydreams of the Doctor, and it allowed the actors to kind of play moments that they wouldn't usually get to play. Funny moment, flirty moments, funny moments, just out of character moments. And I think by that point, it's nice that, playing a character the same way for however many seasons, and you kind of can get a bit not bored because obviously they enjoyed their jobs, but you can get to a point where it feels a bit similar, repetitive. So I like the episodes that allow the actors to play around a little bit and do something different. So I think that's a really great episode.
No,
Um,
and you're
I'm trying
probably
to think of
right.
anything
It probably
else.
helped them with expanding their acting chops, as it were.
Hmm. Or just
And
have fun. If they're playing very serious characters, Seven of Nine, for example, there are episodes where Jerry Ryan got to play different moments. I can't remember what the episode is called, but there's the episode where there's all the different personalities in her head and she gets to
oh yeah,
play. That's fun. But, for example, she's playing a character that's very rigid all the time. And so to have an episode where she can sit there and flirt with the Doctor across the table, it just allows them to play something different. And I think that's fun.
it is a good one. I always appreciate that first time we saw the ECH, the
Hmm.
emergency command hologram, and this is something I'm hoping that we get a Doctor episode of Starfleet Academy. I'd like to see
Mm.
some sort of expansion upon
Hmm.
and why is he so angry?
Yeah.
Like there are certain things that are angering him, and I'm sure by the time this airs, we will have all known there's only 3 episodes left for the season, so. At least I hope it happens in season one. Let's see. Now, back to Doctor Who a little bit. I know that you have had the absolute pleasure of attending the proms in the past, and which,
Hmm.
kudos. That's awesome. They used to be on TV over here. I don't see them anymore.
Oh,
Um,
it's on BBC iPlayer. The one I went to for the 60th, it's on BBC iPlayer, but obviously,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it used to be on
sorry
BBC
guys.
America, but I don't even think BBC America exists anymore. Like we don't really. If it is, I don't have it on anything I have. I gave up cable years ago. Too expensive. It's stream all the way. But
I wonder if it's on YouTube. Have a look. Someone might have put it on YouTube.
it's possible. And I've always been curious, like, like I know with you as Trek culture, what culture all in general being monetized and such, you guys probably get, have to walk a fine line of not, impeding anything or posting something you shouldn't. But like I see people all the time post things on YouTube, and I think, how are you getting away with this and not getting like, some sort of violation for music or whatever the case may be? And
Mm.
and like I posted something weeks ago. It was it was in honor of an episode of DS9, and like 2 seconds, it was gone because they were like, nope, no, like, how? I
It
went,
is. It's a minefield, and it's got worse. It's got a lot worse. I mean, this is outside of my job description. I'm not an editor. I don't put the
right,
things out on YouTube, but I do know it's got a lot worse. I know on our main channel we've had to restrict usage of any. I can't remember which. I think it might be Warner Brothers. We have to only use images now for anything from a Warner Brothers film because even
yeah.
using like you just have to use. I mean, as far as I understand it, we get away with it by, fair use. We don't use any audio. we use royalty-free music in all our edits, and we use a certain amount of time of footage before we cut to something else. So it comes under the fair use terms.
Yeah.
But we have been hit with a lot of copyright claims recently for various different channels and various different reasons. I think a lot of it is to do with that they've probably implemented some AI system that just picks these things up, and then you have to challenge it and go through and try and talk to a human being.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Chris that edited this week's episode of Ups and Downs for Starfleet Academy, but hilarious editing. I saw that the previous week had been hit with violations for showing Caleb and Tarima
Oh, it
in
was a whole
intimate.
thing.
Yeah, and I'm like, I went back and I saw the editing and I was like, okay. And then this week it was like purposely editing certain things. It was just like
Mhm.
blurring feet just in case, you know. I was like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
hilarious.
I believe our editor this week was Eddie,
Was
so
it? Oh,
um, they alternate. So I think
yeah.
it was Eddie, but I could be wrong.
A lot of times I'm guilty of turning it off too early and then I don't see who the credits are at the end. But I usually try to check, but that way at least when if I share it I tag the right person. Um, because I've had that happen. I've tagged Chris and he's like I had nothing to do with this one. I was like, oh my bad, you know. But
Well, when I first started, Tom constantly kept either getting my name wrong, calling me like a different name entirely, or I was being labeled as Sean. And so it was really
wow.
interesting. It wasn't his fault, it was either just a pre-edited thing and he forgot to change it from Sean to Ellie, or, when I was new, they didn't know who I was, so they might have got my name wrong. But he did this week accidentally put Sean instead of or his name instead of my name on the podcast. And he was like, I haven't done this in so long, and now I've labeled your name wrong again.
Well, it happens to the best of us. I've seen you've been on Trek Recommendations, a podcast I've appeared on as
Hmm.
well. And there was like for 2 weeks after my episode, he kept he had to still had my name on the screen for other people. And I'm like texting him, I'm like that's you got the wrong name, you gotta go back. And he's like, oh, he had to go back and edit it over again. And I was like, I get it, I'm always checking everything. It's like I try to make sure I've got spelling correct and I'll add the captions to everything, and like especially
Mm,
like with like Jaden or Darum or Tarima, the new names. These aren't things that
yeah.
are going to be picked up. So I'm like, okay, I'm spell checking everything, and
Yeah. I do that for all of our for the Trek Culture social media when there's clips from our podcast, clips from our what the hell reaction videos. Tom edits the footage, but I do all of the captions, and I'm the
uh,
same. I think it was Kionia that I was looking for the other day. How the hell are we spelling that? Kionian, Kionia. Oh, I was
yeah.
like,
Well, if it doesn't appear on screen, it's kind of the old rule of Star Trek was whoever says it first is how it's pronounced. Maybe
that
it's
was when I first started. I cannot tell you how many times I've since discovered the website where you can search the transcripts, which is really
oh
helpful because at least then it gives you an idea of which episode and timestamp to go to find the pronunciation. But before that, I was having to find out, right, what is this word? And
yeah.
then which Star Trek series is it from? What episode talks about this species or this character? And then I was just kind of skimming through the episodes, trying to find someone say it. And yeah, people would say it differently in the episodes. And I'd be like, this is really unhelpful.
So a
That's when
bit
I
of a
started asking Sean.
no spoiler here, but there is an episode of Lower Decks. Eventually, you'll get to it where they deal with that in Star Trek.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not giving it away, but there's like an alien species where actually it happens a couple of different times where it has been said one way and then another way. So then they constantly are asking themselves, well, how do we pronounce this? Is it Orion or is it Orions? But
Yep.
so yeah, it at least they're self-aware. I like that. Um, Speaking of things that what culture does, you of course have done all of the videos for the war between the land and the sea, which I have
I have.
seen none of because we
Hmm.
still can't have it here. And I've had people, oh, just go and wash your hands and find it illegal. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. Not gonna do that. But thanks for trying to put that out there for me. But no, still waiting on that to come out. I've
Mm.
seen that the Blu-ray is coming out or has come out. this month in the UK, so I'm considering buying that just because it'd be a lot quicker to have it shipped here than it would be to wait on Disney Plus to decide they're going to
Mm.
play it.
Well, I
Uh,
think I saw, it might have been yesterday. It doesn't look like it's turned up on the March listings for Disney Plus, so it doesn't look like it'll be coming in March
okay.
either. I just, I have no idea. It baffles me why. I don't know what they're doing. My only guess is that there is some stuff going on behind the scenes that we know nothing about, but clearly there's some disagreements happening between Disney and the BBC. I don't know.
I have my Doctor Who section, Blu-rays and stuff. I have everything. When the newest Tenet special, the 60th specials
Hmm.
came out, I bought those because I figure with the way streaming is, I don't want to go back and say, okay, no, don't worry about it, it's on Disney Plus. They're gonna if they're not gonna have new episodes, eventually they're gonna take it off. They're not gonna
Mm.
want
Or
to.
look at Prodigy.
Yeah,
I've got all of the physical media of Prodigy because it disappeared. They took it
yeah,
off. We need more
yeah.
Prodigy and they need to bring it back somewhere. How are you supposed to bring in young minds if you don't have the show that's aimed at young minds somewhere accessible?
I speaking to the choir. I'm telling you. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And but that's I need to get season one of Chidi's show, and I need season two to come out. I need them to physically release that, and I worry that they're not going to. I'm worried it's going to be one of those lost things that they never release. And
Mm,
so, but I'm trying to get all those, and then my wife had picked up all of the David Tennants for me, which now I have a couple of them doubled because I had like season four and I had all of the specials individually as they had come out, and then she bought me the big collection and it has them all on there again, but they're better quality. There it is, like you can tell the difference between 16 years ago Blu-ray and now.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to watching your reviews of the show of the war between the land and the sea when it comes out. I'm
mm.
but I'm gonna wait. So I got a whole section saved on my player, just just holding there.
It's a
Um,
difficult one because obviously, our channel is a global channel, but it's really difficult to talk about because you want to talk about things, news and things that come out, but you don't want to spoil it for people. So I've been working really hard to make sure that I am very specific about when I'm going to be talking about the war between the land and the sea and if that section is going to contain spoilers or not. Because
yeah,
if you're like me and you haven't watched Star Trek, but it's been out for 60 years, that's on you. But if it's something that you haven't actually been able to watch, then it's different.
yeah.
It's not kind of like, well, that's your fault. It's kind of like, well, it's not your fault. So just trying to be delicate about spoiling things.
Well, that's like when Sean was on the podcast. We recorded in early December of last year, and he was in Scotland, and we were talking about it, and he was very specific that that's what he was going to be watching while he was there, and I was like, well, don't tell me anything, It's like, but I told we were because I was anticipating like, oh, January, no problem, it'll be here in January.
So did
Nope.
we.
Yeah, yeah, it's and now you're telling me the March thing, and I'm like, ugh. But I have it on Google Alert, so anytime it pops up, maybe I'll find out something. But yeah, when it comes to Doctor Who, here's another Doctor Who question. Okay, so we got the Sonic. You got a favorite
Mhm.
Sonic or TARDIS? Just out of curiosity. I mean, what would be your like, because everybody's got a TARDIS they like. I like, okay, so Matt Smith. I like Matt Smith. But then, I also I'm a big fan of the Vincent era, and when they had Vincent Van Gogh episode, all time favorite. I have the print hanging in our living room of the TARDIS exploding, and on
Uh-huh.
the other side we have the Starry Night with the Van Gogh painting with the TARDIS in it.
Yep.
And I'll be sure to send you a picture because it's one of my favorite things. But how about you? Favorite TARDIS?
I think my favorite interior is Matt Smith's first interior. It just seems really fun. There's lots of things I'd like to press, lots of buttons. It's very bright. I like that. I do quite like the TV movie. one, the kind of
Oh,
gothic vibe of the TV movie interior as well. Yeah, I think they're very fun.
I
As
saw
for
that's coming out
Sonics,
on
yeah.
Blu-ray. Yeah, I'm excited about that with both
Hmm.
versions. So
Yeah,
yeah, so I'm
that's
excited about
exciting.
it.
I'm excited for
Well, the
that.
only
Yeah.
other version I ever had of that was a like a off TV VHS,
Hmm.
and that's all I've ever had. So excited about that one.
Mm.
But Sonic, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's okay. I'm just trying to think. Well, my obvious answer, Rivers, obviously. But I also really, you've seen all of the season two Shooty Gatwas episodes,
Oh
yeah?
yeah, everything.
Okay, good. I didn't want to spoil anything.
No.
I loved the Rani's Sonic
Oh
Screwdriver. I
yeah.
loved it. It was purple, which is, if you couldn't tell, my favorite color. I just loved the design of it, and I had the opportunity to talk to the actual designer of it, and he was explaining all the different kind of reasons for why he made the decisions for the design, and it was just really interesting. But I just loved that. I wasn't a fan of Shooty's Sonic Screwdriver because it looks nothing like Screwdriver.
To
So
me, it looked more like a compact. It was,
yeah, it's like a TV remote. I don't know. It was just
yeah,
like, what is this? So I was really glad when we saw the Rani Sonic and it actually resembled a Sonic screwdriver.
yeah. I'm really hoping that that era isn't just swept under the carpet. Um, I wanna see like the Ronnie's still out there.
Hmm.
Like I want to see her come back in some form. I would like to see the Master come back. I'm always for that. But yeah. Now here's a good off the wall question.
Okay.
And I'm curious, just because I don't think I've ever heard you talk about it. I know you're in, science fiction and such as that, but do you have a favorite musical interest?
As in like musicals or
Like, no,
music?
no, no, no. Like, what? Like, let's say you're out and about and you've got your earbuds in and you're going for a run. What's on your playlist?
Oh, my playlist is full of musical score.
Okay.
Music from film and TV all the time. I used to play it in the car sometimes, and my mum would be like, I feel like I'm in a car chase. So, I mean, it sounds cliche, but Murray Gold, all the Doctor Who soundtracks, got loads of it. If I am running, I like to listen to specific tracks from the Torchwood soundtrack because there's some
Oh,
great action running music. Um, but I love musical score, so pretty much anything I watch, I'm always listening to the music. I'm very attuned to the music and things, and I find it very important. Obviously, it is important for emotional response to different things. But
right.
when I was at university, I was playing some music that had been in a film that we'd watched recently. And my housemate said to me, she was like, "You always listen to music from things we've just watched." And I'm like, "Yeah, because we watch it." And I'm like, "I love that music, so I immediately have to go and find it." So yeah, very much listening to soundtracks, score,
No, I
anything
get
like that.
that. There's a few favorites I've had, and weirdly they come up at different times. We've been watching the Olympics recently, and surprisingly, there was some like there. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Perfume. It's the this
No.
okay. It's no spoilers. It's called Perfume: The Story of a Murderer, or the something like that.
Ooh.
Oh, sorry. It's weird. It's I don't know how to describe it, but it's a musical. It's very much a musical. Um,
Hmm.
but one of the skaters was using the soundtrack to the movie, and I
Oh,
realized,
I've watched some of the skaters and I'm like, oh, I like the music they're dancing to.
well, I heard it, and I was like, that's Perfume. And my wife
Mhm.
said, "What?" And I said, "Well, I said it's a movie she refuses to watch." And I was like, come on, it is a bit scary, but but like it's worth it. The music is worth it. It's like that'd be another good example. That was that Darren Aronofsky did a film called oh, what was that? Requiem for a Dream. The music is
Oh,
wonderful.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
The movie is for interesting taste, but the music is beautiful itself, and
Hmm.
but I always like that the Olympians have been using so many amazing songs, and we've discovered like there was a couple of them, and I was like I wanted to send to a friend of mine, and YouTube comes back again. YouTube will not allow that music, so like on there there's either no music or it's like what do you call it, free to use music, and it just doesn't match the moves and everything else. So that's kind of a bummer. And then when we go to watch the replays, we have Peacock app here in the States, and the Peacock app has been showing the replays, but you have 24 hours to watch it. So it's like you got to really keep up
Yeah.
on it if you want to know what's going on. And we're figure skating fans. We never miss the figure skating here in the house. So but beautiful music, and I can appreciate that. I can. And Murray Gold, I Am the Doctor. That is my go-to song from Murray Gold.
Mhm.
Anytime it's like, oh, even if it's the 12th Doctor, I'm putting that one on, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I love his music. I have for a long time, which is why you mentioned I did go to the proms, and it was something I was so excited. That wasn't something I was invited to. I bought tickets. I was just so desperate to go,
mm,
and I kind of missed out on the previous ones. I think it was kind of there at a time where I was a bit too young, like I wouldn't have been able to have got tickets myself, but I always missed out on them. And when they brought them back for the 60th, it was something I was like, I'm an adult now. I can do this myself. I can sit here with multiple devices while the countdown starts to get in the queue to buy tickets, and I'm absolutely going to get tickets for it. And it was so moving. I want to do more of going to listen to that sort of music live. I've been to a few where I'd love to do the Hans Zimmer one.
oh,
That
yeah.
would be amazing. But just to be in the room and hear that music played live, just the goosebumps, the emotion. I've always found that sort of music so moving. So it was
I
great.
get it. One of the best things I ever had attended was it was E.T., the movie
Hmm.
E.T., but John Williams was performing live.
Yeah, with live
And
audience, live orchestra.
yeah, and just
Hmm.
like you don't want to see the movie. It's like, who do I watch?
Yeah, I
But
did the same thing. I often go to the Royal Albert Hall and they do those, and they had the same Home Alone with a live orchestra
oh,
playing the music with Home Alone, and it was brilliant. I think I did a Harry Potter one as well, actually. I can't remember which film it was, which one of the Harry Potter films, but I did a Harry Potter one as well, and
I've
they had the
seen
live
one Harry Potter
orchestra.
movie. I've seen one. I saw the
Again,
fourth.
childhood. I was at that age. I grew up as they were released.
Yeah, see, I it was never something I got into. A girlfriend of mine had forced me to go see the fourth one. It was Prisoner Azkaban, and she got me to go because she told me Gary Oldman was in it, and I was like, oh, okay. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'll go see Gary Oldman, I was like, but I like Leon, the professional. That was my one of my all-time favorite films, and Oldman is very evil in that movie. But but yeah. Well, Ellie, I appreciate your time. It's been wonderful, and I really truly hope everyone has enjoyed this as much as I have. And um, I want to give you a chance to tell everybody where can they find you? Where should they follow you online?
Well, obviously you can find me on Trek Culture and Who Culture and What Culture as a main channel on YouTube. And we also have social media platforms for all of those accounts as well. And then you can just find me if you just search Ellie Littlechild. There aren't many people with that name. So, well, there might be, I don't know. But if you just search Ellie Littlechild, you'll find me. I'm on all the social media platforms. I try to f post fun things. We live in a time that's not very fun. So I like to be a place where you can come and just block that all out and just have, if I can post something that makes people smile, then I'm happy.
Uh,
That's my ambition. That's my goal.
That's all we can ask for. Well,
Hmm.
I appreciate that, and I hope everybody enjoyed that. So thank you, and we will. I'm gonna go and see if I'm gonna be able to watch The Land Between the War and the Sea, or Land in the Sea soon. So all right. Anyways, I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.